All right, so what we are going to do now is take a look at more details about how T1, T2, and T3 are going to be in the memory. So essentially, for us to be able to deploy our trick of going about scheduling different tasks in this T1, T2, T3, we have to have T1, T2, T3 in certain form, in certain structure. All right, so let me take myself here. So, all right, what we are going to now talk about first is how T1, T2, and T3 will look like. So each of them is a function, a C function, so to speak, and let's call it, task 1, task 2, oh, okay, task 2, and task 3. So these are like the three functions. And what we will assume right now is they take no arguments. So these are like functions that don't return anything, and okay, also they don't return anything. So it's like a void function. So it doesn't return anything and it doesn't take anything as a parameter. Okay, so in the memory then they might exist in different locations, right? So let's say this is, I'll call it T1 for task 1, T2, and T3. So actually, let's just name these as T1, T2, and T3. It's easier to write. Okay, so then the instructions are available here for T1, here for T2, and here for T3. All right, perfect. And so that was kind of how you can imagine T1, T2, and T3. And these are essentially different locations in the memory. Right? That is the idea. Well, that I should also call this memory then, right? So that is the memory. Okay, so and our CPU, as we discussed, when it starts off, it's actually executing the reset handler. So that is where the CPU starts. So then what we are going to do is do some configuration here. And what that configuration is part of the trick. And when we do that configuration, what we'll do is first jump to T1 somehow, right? Again. And actually, we may not necessarily jump from reset handler, although that's a possibility. But the idea is we do some configuration and then jump to T2. And because of this configuration now, somehow after some time, the CPU will have to do the switching from T1 to T2. So we then talked about that when we do the switching, PC plus CPU registers need to be saved. Right. So we are wanting to now take a detailed look at how we'll achieve this. That's part of the trick, but we are going to peel that onion. Okay, so then the question is that somehow we need space to save these. And when the CPU boots up, we also know that the CPU has in memory, so this is, let's say, the RAM memory, the SRAM memory, static RAM or RAM also for short. So it's pointing to some location here at the very bottom, which is serving as the stack. Right? Stack is involved in function calls. So we also know that T1 might call other function, T2 might call other function, T3 might call other function. And so there is function calls involved. And stack is also the place where things can be saved because we know the stack pointer, so we can go save things there. And stack pointer also happens to be an internal register. So we are saving a lot of internal registers here on the stack. And so in some sense, it feels as though T1, T2, T3 are going to use the stack, right? So somewhere the stack is involved. And now it gets better. So one thing, or point one in our trick, is how about each task has its own stack. And stack is just memory that you can read and write to. It's just treated in a very different way, which is, things go on the top of the stack and are popped from the top of the stack. So then we say, okay, T1, T2, T3, every time the CPU is executing these, any one of these, from the RAM, the stack pointer is pointing to different location. And this is a very important trick. Or this is so common that again, every scheduler almost uses this. Almost because, few people don't go for separate stacks in very specific embedded design that, they would want to have. What I mean is there is no hard and fast rule that you should be using separate stacks, except it's a cleaner design to use it. So a lot of popular schedulers use it. And if you are predicting that a given scheduler would be using a separate stack for each task, you wouldn't usually go wrong. Like 99% you will be right in predicting that. So then the idea is that when the CPU is executing T1, it's using this space to do the rough computation or to kind of save and restore from the stack. And when it is executing T2, it's using, so to speak, this region to do that rough computation. And then during T3, it's using this area right here. Now, what does it mean that it's using? First off, when T1 is executing, it would have some local variables. Those local variables would go here. And not only that, when it is doing a context switch, when we are forcing that context switch from T1 to T2, the CPU registers as they correspond to task 1 will be saved on the stack pointer for task 1. Yeah, I just mixed that up. What I meant was the CPU registers will be saved on the stack for the task 1, and then it switches to task 2. The task 2 then kind of, executes its own thing and then has its local variables here. And when it is jumping to T3, when the CPU is jumping to T3, we can have the CPU context saved on the stack for task 2. And why that is important becomes clear in a bit. Same thing with T3, local variables go here, and then the CPU context for task 3 goes on stack for task 3. And now when it switches back from T3 to T1, what happens is this saved context for the CPU for the task 1 is restored back into the CPU. Right? And that's how CPU kind of then gets to know, hey, okay, this is how much amount of stack I have used, or these were values of my CPU registers, and it can then continue to go on executing task 1. Now, somewhere there should be an edge saying, hey, looks like CPU is restoring the context from the stack. And to begin with, the stack had nothing, like when we were executing T1 for the first time. Somehow the CPU did not extract the context from the stack. And same thing, when we moved to executing T2 for the first time, the stack was empty. So, it did not extract the context from stack 2. And when it was executing T3, it did not extract, the context from stack 3. So there is a little bit of anomaly there. But now here's the proposal. So we still have task 1, task 2, task 3, right? And let's say this is the code space memory. And somewhere we have, 3 stacks. So let me call it S1, S2, and S3. And our CPU at the very start was executing the reset handler. Right. And imagine that within the reset handler, if we could create here a dummy CPU context, and by CPU context, I mean set of CPU registers. If we could populate certain values, so certain values would mean that, in this CPU context, somewhere there would be PC, and somewhere there would be like SP, and SP in this case would be pointing to this itself, right? Sorry, rather my bad. Let me go back. It would be pointing to, well, actually, I'm confusing things. It should be pointing to this value here, right? Let's assume, if you haven't understood that, just stay with me. Things will become clearer. So if we have the CPU context artificially fabricated here, and what we then say is, hey, we have this dummy CPU context here, and this is very important, by the way. This is how a task is set up for the first time. So we have a stack pointer, we have a stack memory that is dedicated to T1, T2, and T3, and on each of those tasks, we are going to artificially create a CPU context, right, to begin with. And now what happens is, let's say the reset handler is going to program something like an alarm. It's going to program a timer, which we didn't talk about yet, but that is also involved, and we'll come to that in a bit. So the idea is that the alarm goes off, and every time that alarm goes off, the CPU understands that, hey, I must go and kind of load my stack pointer with the stack pointer for the task, and there I will extract the CPU context from. If all of this is sounding kind of confusing, just hold on, things become a lot more clearer. So the idea is that when it extracts out, when it extracts out the context into the CPU registers, this dummy context is what it is extracting. And this dummy context, the only useful information it has is the location of, or is the value of program counter and the value of stack pointer. Right? So something of that nature is happening, and because of that, program counter value is going to figure out where T1 is and then start to execute that. Similarly, now when it is hopping from T1 to T2, when it is trying to save the context, it will take all these CPU registers and put them on the stack. And this time around, the CPU context is of the process that was halfway through the execution, right? So it's a valid, well, not valid per se, but it is a live CPU context, which is of a process that was executing and halfway through, right? So something similar happens when it is executing T2 for the first time. It picks up the dummy context, and from the dummy context, maybe the program counter value is the only one that is valid. So it goes ahead and starts to execute, and then it uses this stack to kind of, load the local variables and all of that. When it is hopping from T2 to T3, it again stores the CPU context, and this is, so to speak, the live CPU context, right? So then again, when executing T3, it picks up the dummy context, starts off with the valid value of PC, then, loads stuff into this stack. And when switching from T3 to T1, it loads the live context onto the stack for T3 and picks up the live context for task 1. Now, this was maybe a mouthful, maybe it was too much information dump right now. What you should take away is we are going to dedicate different stacks for different tasks. And each of those stacks to begin with will be configured with a dummy CPU context. That's all. If there is anything that I want you to take from this lecture, it is this idea of a separate stack for separate tasks and the stack being loaded with a designed or a manually configured CPU context, and CPU context means registers of the CPU. So we are going to load some information about them. And then there was a notion of alarm that we haven't yet talked about. So make your peace with this so far. If you haven't understood, go back, give it another view. And if you have any questions, put them in the discussion. Um, put them in the discussions. And in the next one, what we're going to do is again go through all of this, but spend a little more time on the alarm part of it and something called, context switching. How will that happen? So with this, I'll see you in the next one.